Each offers 2 films for one low price. Buy your collection at Walmart stores and walmart.com.
Hi, I'm Robert Osborne. Thanks so much for spending part of your Memorial Day with us. As we do every time in this year, we're honoring the men and women who gave their lives serving our country in the military. And we do that by showing a marathon of films about men and women who served during wartime, as well as stories about families on the home front during war. And that's what we have for you next, a home front story about how 2 wars affected an American woman who married into an English family. It's a film from 1944 released by MGM and called The White Cliffs of Dover. It's actually based on a poem called The White Cliffs by Alice Duer Miller, a poem made particularly famous when it was read on the radio early in World War II by stage legend Lynn Fontanne. The poem being about the losses this American woman had to face when she goes through 2 wars in her adopted country. After being introduced by Lynn Fontanne, a legend of the theater, the leading role in the film is played by a legend in motion pictures, the wonderful Irene Dunne, one of the most sought-after freelance actresses in the movie business in the 1940s. Irene Dunne was constantly wooed by major studios and producers to come and work for them, and in 1943, MGM got lucky twice, with Irene signing her for the film A Guy Named Joe with Spencer Tracy and movie newcomer Van Johnson. Then later she was to do either Gaslight or The White Cliffs of Dover. In fact, one reason Irene is in our film of The White Cliffs is because while she was making A Guy Named Joe, shooting had to stop when Van Johnson was seriously hurt in a car accident. Initially, because at that point Van was a movie newcomer and considered non-essential, MGM was going to replace him in A Guy Named Joe. But Irene Dunne and Spencer Tracy were both very keen about Van Johnson, went to the big bosses at MGM and said they'd each be willing to wait until Van was able to work again. So A Guy Named Joe was temporarily put on hiatus, and since Irene now suddenly had free time, she was available to do The White Cliffs of Dover, and she did it, and she's luminous in it. Here with the cast that includes the very young Elizabeth Taylor and Roddy McDowall, also Peter Lawford, plus Van Johnson, making a brief appearance as a test to see if he could be photographed or needed more time for facial and forehead scars to heal from the accident before going back to complete that other movie with Irene Dunne. From 1944, with a great cast of British supporting players and a very handsome new leading man for Irene, Alan Marshall. Here's The White Cliffs of Dover.